Hello, Rob here from the Flanagan Homestead. I'm back in the greenhouse here in mid-January. I hope you can hear me okay. The sound of the rain on the roof is pretty loud here. But anyway, so in today's video, you're going to see, hopefully, start here in January. I'm going to do cuttings for blueberries in January, and I'm going to show you how they looked in the summer and hopefully in the fall when I plant them all in this video. I'm going to wait to make this video until I have an entire growing season done, and then you can see the progress. So anyway, we went out to Columbia Fruits where they grow 2 million pounds of blueberries every year, and Claudio, the field boss, showed us how to prune the blueberry bushes. I have a video. You can find the link in the descriptions if you want to see how the pros prune their blueberry bushes. But anyway, so there's just stacks and stacks of canes laying on the ground, and so we picked those up. And I brought some home, and I'm going to stick them in a rooting medium. So we're going to try to do blueberry cuttings here in mid-January, and hopefully, so when you're pruning the blueberries, which you're supposed to do right around the beginning of the year, end of December, early January, instead of just throwing all the canes away, this is a chance to do some cuttings. So I'm in the greenhouse where there'll be a little bit of warmth. I would think that if you did this and you put them in a window in your house or something, you could probably start some as well. And then as the weather gets warmer, if these are growing well, I will move them outside. And anyway, this video is about that process. Stay tuned. We have two bunches of canes here that we took from Columbia Fruit yesterday when they were pruning the fields. So we have the Legacy that still have the leaves on them. Legacy keeps their leaves during the winter. And then we have some Liberty that we're going to do some cuttings with. This is an unusual time of the year. It is hardwood cuttings. People do that with blueberry bushes, but this is actually still in the middle of January when they do their pruning. But we're going to try to do it in the greenhouse today. For our planting medium, we're going to try two different things. I have potting soil right here, which is not normally what you use for cuttings. I want to use it because it kind of wicks up the moisture. And so here's some potting soil that was really dry that had been left alone. And I took some of this and set it in a pan of water a couple days ago. And you can see here, this was as dry as this, and it was this all came from the bottom and soaked up. So I believe that if I just put these in a pan, I will be able to keep the soil moist, but not soaking wet. The other medium I'm going to use is fine wood bark. Mike Kincaid, who's very successful at cuttings around this area, recommends this. I got this from him. But the reason he likes to use it is it keeps moist, but if you put a bunch of water in it, it will successfully drain out the bottom so it doesn't get super moist and just rot your plants out or mold your plants out. So I'm going to use fine wood bark, and I'm going to use a potting mix. I've done some sand in the past and had some success with that. I don't have sand here today, but I'm going to try these two mediums. I have a couple of Liberty canes here of various diameter, but one of the things you want to be careful with, I was watching some other people do this the other day, and they were planting the blueberries and they were using the ends of the plant where these larger buds are actually going to flower and try to produce fruit, and these smaller nodes are the ones that actually produce leaves. So not that you can't have these in the cuttings, but you'll definitely, if they try to flower, want to cut these off, and you'll want to have a couple nodes above the soil and a couple nodes below the soil on your cutting. So I'm going to try to leave at least 4 nodes on each of my cuttings. So we have a node here, 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 and another one here. So I'm going to leave 4, cut this off. I'm going to cut back up directly underneath this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, going to be right underneath this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll even go 5 on this one. And I'm going to cut off this flowering bud and make this another one. Okay, I'm going to take my 4-inch cutting approximately. And now on the bottom, right next to the node, which already has indeterminate cells in it, I'm going to cut at an angle through here and try to create more exposure to indeterminate cells that can become roots. I'm going to go ahead and get this moist in the water Stick this in the rooting hormone. And I'm going to use a piece of waste blueberry and poke a hole so I don't rub all the rooting hormone off. And I'm going to stick that in the hole, a couple inches down, pack it in. I'm probably going to do 3 or 4 in each of these little pots. Continuing our process of winter cuttings, we're in the greenhouse. It is January 14th, not the normal time of the year. Because the Legacy has leaves on them, I'm going to cut them in half, similar to you would do on rose cuttings, and not having to try to support the leaves, but have some leaf there. We're going to soak these all in really good. Make sure they're packed in good, and then we'll see what happens. We did our blueberry cuttings actually only 6 days ago, and I was expecting it to take a lot longer to start seeing growth. But if you look at our plots here, the Legacies especially, there's buds that are obviously already swelling and trying to open up after 6 days here in the greenhouse. The Liberty, on the other hand, this is similar, is not budding out nearly as quickly, but the Legacy has taken off. And I'm also noticing the smaller the diameter canes, those tend to be the ones that are taking off sooner than the larger diameter canes. It is now February 16th. We're going to drench all these pots, let the extra run out. Most of the plants are doing well, or at least starting to grow. You can see some of them that have now started to grow and are withering. So hopefully we don't start a pattern there that was just a weak plant. February 16th checkup. So what I do is every morning I take my watering pot and I just simply run a little bit of water when I'm doing my chores. And then I go and feed my animals, but then this is just fir bark, fine fir bark, and the water just runs right through it, but it'll hold a little bit of moisture. It does sit in the pan, so it can, well, not a pan, but it's a little bit of tray that holds it, so if I'm not around, it can wick up some more water and go there. Now, when I say this is how to properly do it, I've actually pulled it a little bit out from the house right now, but normally they sit under the overhang of the house, and so the midday and afternoon sun don't hit it at all. You can see there's a little bit of a shadow here, but these big fir trees that are here where the sun can hit them, it's actually, what sunlight there is early morning sunlight filtered through the fir trees. So you're supposed to, when you do cuttings, and since they don't have a whole lot of root, put them on the north side of the house. They're in daylight, but they're not in direct sunshine. So these do get a very minimal amount of direct sunlight. They're protected by the house and the trees, and so the hot weather is not going to burn them up, and I don't have to spritz them with water all the time. They've been holding, as you can see, they've been holding enough moisture just in the fir bark, and me walking through each morning just dripping it on there, and they've been fine. So I cut a pop bottle that's clear for the sake of showing my horticulture class and you guys and for myself to see how long it takes to grow roots. For 4 months we didn't see any. Obviously the callousing happens first and then the roots start to grow. But this cane that comes down here close to this side, you can see that there's a little bit of root growing on this side. It is now July 31st and we planted these in mid-January, and I think you could see a little bit of root over here as well, but this is the best. Okay, so just to be transparent, I'm going to show the good with the bad. These are all the plants that I brought up and had up here all year long. Many of these are still doing really well. This is a time of year, if you go look at my blueberry bushes down there, the leaves are falling off. They're turning red and yellow and falling off. And so a little bit of the color change here is due to that, but a lot of it is due to the plants not thriving. Some plants are doing very well for first year cuttings. I was doing really well through most of the summer, and this whole tray was looking beautiful. But that's part of my chores, that my daily chores was to put water on the bark chips that had the cuttings in here every morning. My wife and I went to Glacier National Park, and it got over 100 degrees for several days while we were gone, and on my chore list I did not leave to water this, and I came back and multiple of these were dying and dying off. One thing that you do need to do if you're going to do cuttings, they don't have a root system, you have to consistently have some moisture in the ground, especially when it does get warm. The other thing that may have happened, and I don't know as well, you want to do cuttings in an inert medium like sand or wood chips, meaning there's not a lot of organic matter in it that bacteria can grow in. Once the roots got started, I did put a little fertilizer in there hoping the roots would pick up the fertilizer, but that does also allow for a little bacteria and other things that can be harmful to the young cuttings. I don't know if that had an effect or not. My belief is, well, especially since most of this damage happened on the 5 days that we were gone to Glacier and it was really hot and nobody's watering it, I think that is mostly what happened. Some of these did a little bit better because there is a tray of water in here, and I did put a little bit of water in here, and the ones that sat down and were wicking up water, at least for a few of those days, seem to have done better. Some of these that were raised up and out on the edge, you could see this one that was sitting on the edge and not in the water, they're completely gone. So that leads me to believe it was mostly due to the heat and not getting water in the rooting medium during that time. Okay, I need to be very careful with these. Actually, I might. Blueberry roots, especially with cuttings, are very fine to begin with and can be damaged. So I want to be careful. I'm going to try to just let these come out in clumps, and without changing much, just stick these in the ground. Pack that in. I will be watering this in, even though it's winter, just to make sure that the roots get growing well in there. But yeah, I'm going to leave that in there and just let the roots continue out through the wood chips and hopefully find a spot in the soil where there's more nutrients. And I will fertilize this soil going into next spring. So let's just dig a hole approximately the size of the pot. I'm just surprised how dry some of the soil is down there. Oh, this one is beautiful. You can see a lot more green on this plant, and it's a lot healthier. I think you could see that this is actually developing quite a good root system. This is what I'm looking for. These two plants are going to take off next year. You can see all those white fibers all the way around. This is nice. Again, I might end up sacrificing this one as a Liberty. There actually looks like a pretty good root system over here. I'm going to let what wants to fall off just fall out and see what is left. Don't really want to peck away at it, just so we can get a visual of what's in there. Hopefully you can see this is kind of the cluster of roots for a cutting that actually didn't do very good. There's not much of it, but there is a little decent root section in here. There's some coming off up here. I need to be gentle and not tear off, and some right here. Okay, so we're going to end this video back where we started it on a rainy day in the greenhouse. So in summary, I'm really happy with the cuttings that I got. Many turned out really well. I lost several when I wasn't able to keep water on it on a really hot time. I'm thinking if I do this again, I do have irrigation system in my yard that goes on all the time. If I could put the plants in a shady area that got hit with an irrigation system, I wouldn't even have to worry about it, and I just leave them all year and it'll keep going. The rooting mediums that we use, the fine wood bark chips, did much better than the potting soil. And last but not least, the ones that were in a tray that held a little bit of water and could wick up that water when I wasn't there to water them, they seem to do really well. So I'm probably going to do this again. I have to prune my blueberries every year. I'll probably take some cane, stick it in there. Even if I get to where I don't need any more plants, I will be producing some to give away or sell or bring to the school here. So thanks for joining me on the Flanagan Homestead, where Christmas trees are my business, teaching including horticulture is my job, and outdoor projects are my passion. Be blessed. Hope to see you again soon.